podcast. You wanna fight, bro? Yeah, the Fight Bros podcast.
All right, what's up, Fight Bros podcast listeners? We're coming at you today with Fight Bros Cryptid Files number 6. We've got a big topic today. We've got a great guest. We're possibly covering the biggest topic in UFO lore, the Indrid Cold saga. And I've got a great guest for you today. She was a speaker at the Whitfield UFO conference. She's a cryptozoologist, UFOologist, lecturer, author. She does it all. She's the host of On Wednesdays We Talk Weird podcast. Great podcast, by the way. We've got Ashley Hilt on the podcast today. Ashley, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Ashley, I wanted to kind of give a little backstory of, you know, how I got in touch with you and everything. So at the UFO festival, I seen a write-up for that was coming to Whitfield. I live in Pulaski, so that's pretty nearby. And I seen a speaker was going to be talking about Indrid Cold. And I'm so invested in this. You know, I have the book by Woodrow Derenberger and his daughter, Taunia Derenberger, and watch, you know, pretty much everything they got on TV about the subject. So, you know, I thought you did a great job speaking on the topic. You're very knowledgeable about this topic. I was very impressed. You know, tell us a little bit about the conference and what you thought about it and how you got invited.
Yeah, so it is ran by good friends of mine, Robin and Brian Van Hoos. They are Van Hoos. I'm sorry, guys, I'm butchering your names, but we're great friends, I promise. So they're actually local to that area, and you know, of course, they run a company. It's called Mystic Novelty Co. I know I'm shilling all their stuff right now. Oh gosh, but they make a bunch of stuff, and they go to these events, and so of course we've met just by, you know, the convention circuit, right? And they wanted to put on this festival, and I'd been a vendor. Actually, I'd been a sponsor at the festival 2 years in a row. And then of course they invited me to come speak because they're, you know, familiar with what I do. This was the first time I'd ever given a lecture about Indrid Cold. I've done all kinds of stuff. Of course, I got into Indrid because my main topic of study is actually the Mothman, and you can't really do the Mothman without hitting the Indrid Cold brick wall. And so you know, as I continued my research into all this stuff, Indrid kind of became a more personal experience for me rather than all of these topics, just because of how close I ended up getting to specifically Taunia Derenberger. So of course they asked me to speak, and I try to make every lecture that I give different depending on where I'm going to be at. So I've already talked about Mothman. I've already talked about Frogman. I've talked about the Men in Black, you know. So I decided, well, okay, let's do Indrid. Taunia had been dead for almost, well, a little over a year at that point, which is kind of tough to, I guess, do justice to a dead person, especially one that you're close with. But it's something that within the last year of her death, the investigation had really picked up at that point. So it's, you know, something I couldn't wait to tell everybody about. And even though I'm still very much in the throes of that investigation, and things have happened since that festival, which was just in the beginning of June, it's definitely, you know, it's the year of Indrid for me. So super exciting to have the opportunity to share that with everybody. I was actually very surprised at the amount of interest. Now, I'm not going to say that I sit here and I look at everybody's audience when they give lectures or whatever, but I do try to pop in and listen to the speakers. And I had a traffic jam at the door for people to hear about Indrid Cold. And I guess for me, I forget how little there is about this topic and how it's just not really on the spotlight. It just tends to be like a little side story about the Mothman stuff. Nobody ever really puts it to the forefront. So of course I love that. I love the energy. I love that everybody was there to listen to it and wanted more. So very exciting. Like I said, if they'll have me back, of course I'll come back.
Yeah, definitely. I hope they have you back. Yeah, I was the guy out in the crowd. I always come to these and I'm like, I gotta ask a question. Like I want to be prepared to ask a question. I asked you a question about Valent Thor, and I actually realized listening to your podcast that you had actually answered it in your podcast as well. Uh,
Sure.
but I didn't know that before I asked it because I listened to your podcast after.
No, that's okay. It's a valid question. And some of this stuff you just can't do it justice in, 40 minutes or so. It's just not possible, which is why, we do have multiple topics over on the podcast about the stuff. I mean, you have to. It's just takes a while to get it all out there.
Now, getting into a little bit about yourself here, what's kind of your earliest spark of interest into this field, cryptozoology, UFOs?
So I started off into cryptozoology. I wasn't into Indrid Cold or the Mothman. I was totally happy that, to settle on it was a sandhill crane and everybody lost their damn minds. But I saw the Patterson Gimlin film. So I actually didn't see the film initially. I'd read an article. So I was in middle school, and we had these little like Time magazines or whatever that we'd read like during study hall. And one of the articles was about Ray Wallace and his death. And for people that don't know, Ray Wallace was pretty famous for having multiple different Bigfoot tracks. He was a cryptozoologist, and when he died, admitted on his deathbed that all the tracks were fake and had the cast that he was using to go make these tracks. Well, the reason why Roger Patterson was out at Bluff Creek to begin with was because he got a tip off because Ray Wallace had found tracks in the area. So, of course, people were questioning the Patterson Gimlin film. Well, I won't say how old I am, but I had to go home and I had to go look at this Bigfoot video, right? I couldn't pull it up on my phone. So I went home, I get on my dial-up internet. I spent about a week downloading the Patterson Gimlin film, and by the time I finally saw it, it blew my little middle school mind. I couldn't believe that anybody thought that this was fake. Like I'm like, wow, that's Bigfoot. Bigfoot's real. And from there it just kind of sparked an interest. I'm a millennial, so I kind of grew up with technology kind of growing up with me. And so the internet was a great resource for all of the, unexplained, all these blurry photographs and videos of mysterious creatures. And that was just something I was really into. And so I had my mind made up. I was going to go to school for zoology, because you can't for cryptozoology. You just kind of are a cryptozoologist or you aren't. And then, kind of go from there. Well, of course, life happens. That didn't happen. I ended up doing a bunch of different things in my life. And then 2019, I had a bunch of friends invite me to go to the Mothman Festival. Now, like I said, ufology was not my thing. Terrified of aliens, right? Didn't want to meet one, wasn't interested in UFOs. Um, but with the Mothman Festival, it's only 2 hours away. My friends were YouTubers. They were making like a YouTube video about Mothman. They thought it would be kind of funny if I was on there as the quote cryptozoologist. They didn't have like like a spooky YouTube channel. It was just supposed to be funny. And so we go and spend the weekend at the Mothman Festival, and it was life-changing in very crazy ways. I experienced what I know now as a string of synchronicities. And I mean, it really rocked me to my core. And so I get into this Mothman investigation, and I wasn't an investigator before this point. Just so much weird stuff was happening. I didn't know if other people were aware of all the weird surrounding all this stuff. I just thought that maybe they were like me, right? They heard stories of people saying this weird winged creature, and that was the end of it. But I had to tell people, I had to let people know this was going on, but I needed more knowledge on it, right? So I continue investigating it, had my heart set on making this whole big Mothman documentary, which I'm still working on years later, but whatever. And it really had a huge impact on me. And in 2021, I received a very particular Mothman report. And as the person's giving me their account, I realized that, holy shit, I saw this thing back in 2016. I had an encounter with it and just kind of erased it from memory because I didn't believe in any of this stuff. I didn't want to believe in any of this stuff. So I chalked it up to circumstances of what was going on at the time. and just kind of moved on with my life. So anyway, I could really say more if you want me to, but I think that's a good short version.
I liked how you brought up talking about the degree in cryptozoology. So
Yeah.
growing up before, I got invested in the what degrees colleges offered and everything. I always thought I was going to major in cryptozoology.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that. Well, and that was the idea, right? I wanted
yeah,
to get into I wanted to go on expeditions. That was my thing. Like I wanted to be out in the
yeah.
woods looking for physical evidence of this stuff because to me this was all physical. These are just animals that are undiscovered. Let's go for zoology, right? And then that way I'm taken seriously when I find Bigfoot or whatever. And slowly this has all kind of shifted into me being more into ufology than anything. But you never forget your roots, right? I love a blurry creature. That's my favorites.
Yeah.
Now, what is like your, favorite cryptid or favorite UFO topic that, kind of hits home to you?
Well, it changes every week. It just depends on what I'm looking into. Um, I'd love to give you a good answer. People always assume it's Mothman. It's not. People always assume it's Indrid Cold, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it's the bane of my existence. But I don't know. It, like I said, it really just depends. I like the weirder the better. Locally, we have a story about the Crosswick monster. It was a 30-foot reptile type creature who that tried to eat a couple of kids. The whole town went to go chase it off because it attempted to eat one of the local kids, and they all saw this giant thing, which ended up taking refuge in a hollowed out tree that they were trying to get it out of. Well, it jumps out of the tree, stands up on its two back legs, and runs off into a cave. And they're trying to flush it out of the cave. They're on the opening and they're on the end of it, and nobody ever saw it again. I mean, I like these weird one-off stories that they're just so crazy. They have to be true. The Vegetable Man of West Virginia, man, that's a great one. A guy sees a spaceship land in the is out hunting. He sees a spaceship land in the woods. He approaches it. There's this weird, like kind of vegetative type creature that is talking with him telepathically, and it just says, "Hey, I need help. I'm not here to hurt you." And as he gets closer to it, it reaches out with these hands that have like needles coming out of the fingers and grabs onto him and sucks his blood through its needle hands. And then it fucks off into the night. Nobody ever sees it again. I just, like I said, who makes that up? Nobody makes that up. That happens. Like, that's a true story. So that's the kind of stuff that I like.
Mm.
Now, at the, conference, I think you mentioned that, you do this full time. Could you tell me a little bit about that and your experiences with it from your day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a tough job. It is a thankless, underpaid job. I can tell you that. Nobody actually pays you to investigate, but I'm open to witnesses at all hours. I've had people that I've gotten on phone calls with, and it's like 8 hours later, and I'm still talking to this person, and they're still telling me basically their entire life story and all this weird stuff that they've encountered. So I'm pretty much available all the time to whomever has whatever experience they want to share. Um,
Wow.
so again, nobody's paying me for that 8 hours, right? So I have to get creative with it. So I have to do things like have a podcast or, go lecture somewhere and sling merchandise. Have a Patreon where people can, support the investigation, and I can kind of share little tidbits about what I'm doing here and there. It is tough. It is tough to do it full time. Most people don't. I'll tell you that. If you have more investigators and stuff on the show, most of them are normal and have normal jobs, which is probably the smart thing to do.
But you're making it work, which is awesome.
I'm
Um,
trying.
now a quick question. So you really love like ufology. Have you heard of the theory that Bigfoot's an alien and that's why he's able to come and go without much detection and much evidence? Have you heard of that theory? And if so, what's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah. That is kind of starting to become, I think, more popular than Bigfoot just being an undiscovered species of North American ape, right? I think we're seeing that more and more. And I think mostly not because there's something to it, but I think more so because it's sexy, right? It's a much sexier explanation than just, oh, it's a
Yeah.
big stinky ape. Um,
Yeah.
what do I think about it? Well, I've talked to people who have had encounters with Bigfoot where they're seen carrying orbs of light, or they also they go home and then they have like poltergeist activity at their house after encountering this thing. But I've also talked to people that were just hunting in the woods and they saw a Bigfoot and nothing else happened going forward. um I kind of have my own theory on what some of this stuff is, and I think that there's two explanations here. I think for one, there is a flesh and blood undiscovered species of ape out there. I don't think it's as massive as people claim it is, or claim of what they've seen. If we look at like the Patterson Gimlin film, we know that Patty is only between like 6'7" and 7 foot. She's not that big. I mean, that's big for a primate, but she's not that big.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that the people that have the stranger stories are experiencing some type of anomalous phenomena that knows that we have these very strange legends, that we have these our own mythology, and I think it's trying to replicate that mythology as much as it can because it wants you to know that you're seeing something significant. Why? I don't know. But I think that it might take the shape of a Bigfoot, and then that's what you see, right? That's what you end up seeing, but it doesn't really know how. If we look at stuff like the Men in Black, they look like humans for the most part, but they're terrible at being humans. We've got reports of Men in Black, being offered Jello, and they have no clue how to eat Jello. They don't know how to use a fork. Um, so I think that when we see something like a Bigfoot carrying an orb of light, it's because it doesn't actually know how to be a Bigfoot. It just knows that we have Bigfoot.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I think that was well put.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Um, so the next kind of thing I wanted to jump into is the Indrid Cold. For our listeners that haven't um, heard about this, I do have like a brief kind of write up about it before uh, me and Albert and Ashley start to dive into our own opinions on the topic. But so it kind of started on November 2nd, 1966. Woody Derenberger was driving home from a business trip when he encountered an extraterrestrial that was named Indrid Cold. Cold communicated with Woody Derenberger telepathically, and the two went on to form a lifelong friendship over 50 years. Other people close to Woody, including family, friends, and his therapist, even claimed that they had experiences in Indrid Cold. Woody wrote and published a detailed book talking about his experiences and never went back on his story. His daughter published a follow up book saying it was all true, and she never went back on her story as well. The day after the event, Woody Derenberger did a radio interview about his experience. That is on YouTube. I believe it's about 30 minutes and very detailed. And then to top this off, to give you a brief summary, Indrid Cold supposedly appeared at Woody Derenberger's funeral when he passed. To kind of give a brief summary, there's so much more to this. But I kind of want to go around to each of us. I'll start with Ashley here and then Albert after that. After knowing what we know about this topic, do you personally believe this is factual?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. Um, so just looking at the Woodrow Derenberger saga and what happened there, yes, I do believe that Indrid Cold was some type of intelligent being. I believe that it was very easy for him to hide amongst all the tourism, right, that was going on at their property. I believe it would be easy for him to hide at the funeral. The funeral was pretty big. It was all kinds of people there. It's not like it was this little intimate get together, so I think again it would be very simple for an alien that looks just like you and I to approach and hang out. Yes, the Woodrow story, I have no reason to not believe.
How about yourself, Albert?
You know, I I don't necessarily have a strong opinion on it, and that's because I'm always finding flaws, or I'm just more of like a natural skeptic. Not because I don't want to believe, but I just, there's always some kind of benefit for a lot of these people to have a story like this. Maybe it's attention, maybe it's money, or what have you. And I'm not saying it's none of it's not true whatsoever, but I always look at everything that comes out as, does this person have a motive behind this? Um, and it's impressive to me how they have decades of history, spanning multiple generations, saying the same thing, and out of a lot of the encounters people say they've had, this one seems more plausible than the other ones. There's so many accounts on it. I would love to see a photo, but I also understand that that was way back before people just had access to cameras right in their pocket where they could just snap a quick selfie. But even then, if it was just more or less like a humanoid, who's to say it wasn't? So even then, maybe that wouldn't be convincing for most people. I not to say it would or wouldn't be for me, but I would say this one's more plausible than a lot of them. But
No, and
not a sexy answer.
so I kind of give the same answer with all this stuff. After reading his book, it's just so detailed. I want to believe. I mean, the way he goes into detail, and we'll talk about this coming up. But when he visited planet Lanulos,
Yeah.
when he visited that planet and the detail he goes into, I want to believe it. And like you kind of mentioned, we're kind of seeing with the UFO court hearings and Bob Lazar, Stephen Greer. I mean, we've got present day people that are kind of saying the same stuff Woodrow Derenberger was saying in 1966. So I want to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and at one point you had made a comment about it as we were talking about Lanulos of like, what kind of person could dream up a world like this, like it had so much detail, it was so believable. And for me, just looking at it with skepticism, I was like, well, if you look at the Marvel films, the detail that goes in, or it's just kind of any sci-fi movie, the detail that goes into them is just magnificent. Um, and so that's where I'm like, I could see this being an imagination thing. Not saying it was. Like I'm definitely not saying I don't believe it whatsoever. But I'm still looking at like every account with, is this a true like could this be a made up statement?
I'll tell you, Albert, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being skeptical about this story. If you would ask me this 3 years ago, if I believed it, I'd have told you no. I
Yeah.
didn't initially going into it because there's a lot of stuff that Woodruff says about Lanulos that I take issue with. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. And, however, when I really deep dived into it and have tried to contact all these people, everybody that has met Indrid, right, or claims to have met Indrid, and I've never met the guy, and I've been looking for him for years now. Um, it does change it a bit in your perspective on it. And backtracking other people's stories who have humanoid encounters, right? There are people that
Yeah.
have very similar stories. There are people that claim to have met Indrid that aren't related to the Derenbergers. And again, who knows? Maybe they have something to gain from it, and that gain is not necessarily money. And I cover that, with my close relationship with Taunia, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. She definitely had no money at all. It wasn't money, but that doesn't mean that attention isn't just as valuable as the dollar.
Yeah.
We all want to be special, and I can recognize that as a skeptic, and I'll just be honest, I'd be terrible at my job if I didn't go into these topics as a skeptic,
Yeah.
just shouldn't do it if I can't objectively look at something and put it into a category. So I completely understand the skepticism. I have my own reasonings for why I do believe it, and I'm sure we'll kind of get into that. And I don't know, maybe you'll walk
Yeah.
away from this conversation today with a different perspective.
Yeah, which I will preface any of this with saying I 100% believe in aliens, right? Like I have no doubt making that statement that I 100% believe in aliens, but I'm not going to believe every story I'm told, like the Valent Thor story, and that's on our list to touch on here in a bit. I don't believe that one whatsoever. And we could touch on why as we talk about it. I don't believe that one, but also I recognize there's a lot of like boy who cried wolf stories, right? Like you
Oh yeah.
said, humans want attention so bad. So even if they don't have money, um, man, they love that attention. They love the spotlight on them. They love cameras on them. So of course, there's been a lot of extraterrestrial encounters out there. Um, but I'm confident that there's also a lot of made up ones as well. So you kind of have to sort through all that noise and look at it with skepticism. So every person who's like, I saw an alien or I got probed by an alien,
Sure.
you're like, did you?
Why didn't you invite me? Damn.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I don't want to get probed by an alien. But no. I love these topics. But I understand when you're discussing it in the realm of ufology, cryptozoology. It's not a lot of people find it a popular opinion. It's kind of a hot take when you say you don't believe every story because a lot
Yeah.
of I don't want to say a lot of people, but you have some people in this field, they just take every story that it's absolute truth, and that's just not my mentality.
I think that's a healthy way to view it. If anybody comes and listens to my show, if you guys listen to my show, we're very we have a healthy degree of skepticism.
Yeah,
We try to follow the facts as close to the facts as we can get. Critical thinking is just not very popular in this community, and that's unfortunate because there are weird stories out there.
yeah,
There are. We don't have to rely on the fake stories, the hoaxes, the lies, whatever you want to call it, the exaggerations, in order to
yeah,
have an interesting story. When it comes to Indrid, again, I don't blame anybody for not buying it. I really don't, because
yeah,
I didn't. And even today, just depends on the day, right? Well, if you ask me if I still believe it or not. But again, a lot of it is because I have my own personal experience with the topic, and had I not deep dived it, I just would have chalked it up to, yeah, that probably didn't happen.
yeah,
And here we are.
yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. And I guess for me, I mostly know, like I got to listen to Tanya's audiobook. I listened to that this previous week to kind of get ready for this. And other than that, I've not gotten to read any of the other books uh, on Indrid Cold. So everything I know is pretty much from Marcus here. And so without having my own time invested into it, learning about it, um, I just can't say one way or another whether I believe it or not. Because man, there's a lot of creative people out there who I absolutely think could come up with this story or something similar. But then you have a lot of people connected to the family who also say they've met the subject, and so there's a lot there, right? And I can absolutely respect that.
So let's jump into some of the details that they described when Woodrow Derenberger, visited planet Lanulos. And I want to go around and get y'all's opinions. Ashley, please correct me if I tell some of these wrong. Um, but pretty much when he got to visit this planet, he did notice it was a little different in some ways. Derenberger So instead of having like a president, like we do, they kind of have a council. Another thing that was described was their average age, I think 175 to 200 years old. Supposedly the aging, process on planet Lanulos not as fast as it is for us here on Earth. They had a limit on children. They didn't want to have overpopulation. I believe it described only 2 children per couple. The telepathic communicating, that was a big thing. So the people of Lanulos supposedly mainly communicate telepathically, and Indrid claims that us folks on here on Earth have the power to do that. We just have not unlocked that to our potential. And claimed these people are nudists. That was another interesting thing. Christianity seems to be the main religion of Lanulos. And he also claimed that 2 other beings of Earth live on Lanulos, and they had been living and thriving on that planet. So that was very brief, but Ashley, do any of those topics kind of stick out to you, make you raise an eyebrow or anything like that?
Well, yeah. So the aging thing, I can buy that, right? We as humans have lengthened our life expectancy, and probably will continue to do so as long as we're around. Telepathy, sure, I can buy that. It seems very intrusive. Like I don't know how exactly it works, right? But I would think that, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and I have a judgment about them, it would be really unfortunate that they would know what that judgment is up front. You know. But okay, I can buy that. Again, we have we have government experiments on ESP and stuff. So sure, why not? The one world government, again, I think that would be difficult. However, if you came together and you have a limit on your population, I think that's doable, right? We have gigantic countries. Look at India's got like 3 billion population or something like, something crazy like that. And they seem to handle it all right. So sure, if you have a limited population, I could see having like a one world unified government. I would agree that having a president or a dictator, one body, as the ruler of all this, wouldn't make a lot of sense. I do take issue a little bit with the Christianity, and just because I would think that something this advanced would surpass religion. I'm not here to shit on anybody's religion or anything. You believe in what you believe in. It's not my business what you believe in. But to say that the Holy Bible, which doesn't really go on to mention other planets and life on other planets, would be the one religion, just seems odd to me. I would think at least that they had a religion, it would shift to something that would encompass all that. Um, Being nudist, sure, why not? I'm here for it. Human nature, though, I think stops us from doing that. And I'm somebody that takes my shirt off at every party I go to. Like, I'm here for it, but like, listen, I know what I'm doing when I do that. You know what I mean? So, so we're saying that what things like rape don't exist on this planet? How did they get to that point? Um, the humans, the other humans that are there, the Earthlings, I should say, that are there, I find that really, really fascinating. I would love to hear from those people, if they're listening to the show, if they could contact me, that'd be great. I could believe that. I could believe that other humans would take the opportunity. People joke in this community all the time, take me to your planet, get me off of this rock. So I could buy that there are other humans that end up going to Lanulos and staying, but what does that look like? I mean, is there like an approval process that they have to? I'm sure, especially when they have limited children, you're not just inviting Earthlings to come stay. What the hell made these people so special? I wanted more of that lore, but we unfortunately didn't get it. Anyway, so I don't know. Would I go? Probably not, because another thing about it is that we kind of reverted backwards a little bit on Langelos, it seems, right? We're not as privileged as we are here on Earth, to have the same kind of freedom. So I don't know that I'd do well there, but I'd be interested to learn more if they had like a library, right? Indrid, give me some damn books. Like, give me some of your history books. How did you guys get here?
Yeah.
So what you just
Yeah.
mentioned about that's what I had. That's what kind of made me raise an eyebrow. Is throughout the whole book it talks about how these folks are, very nice, not judgmental, equal. Don't have any hate towards anybody. But then that made me raise an eyebrow during your podcast with Taunia, that she said women weren't allowed to ride on the ship, and like you just said, kind of reverted to what we have in empowering women here on Earth. That kind of made me raise an eyebrow about the topic.
Yeah,
Well,
I find that strange.
well, and I have two things on the story, right? The whole they live 175 to 200 years. My thought on that is, I agree with you completely, Ashley. With advances in technology, most societies are going to live longer, and they're not eating harmful bacteria and they're cooking food and, just basic things like that. Then you're advancing medical technology. Of course, you're going to live longer, things like that. However, the Lanulos, if it's a real planet, may not be the exact same size as Earth, and it actually may not have the exact same orbit around its sun. It could be orbiting a lot quicker. Um, so who's to say that, they're counting years as we're counting days? So
True.
they may have a similar aging rate, but like a physical aging rate if you put us side by side, but they're counting faster because they're taking quicker trips around the sun. Um, just a point to make if you consider the actual physical aspects of different planets. But either way, that one's. I'm not saying it's a BS story because of that. It's just a fascinating point to make about differences in the environments we're born in. But I 100% don't believe the Christianity thing because it's an earth-based religion that more or less has denounced the existence of extraterrestrial life. So why, if Jesus died for your sins on our earth, why would other planets, find that as their central point of religion? I genuinely think the religion on other planets would be more of like a grand architect of the universe kind of religions. Um, and less of like like we're not going to worship something similar that may happen on another planet, so why would they do that for us? So I think that part of the whole story is absolute malarkey. Just for me, that one doesn't make sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Maybe they have their own Jesus and their own great flood and their own, I
Yeah,
mean, but
yeah,
he didn't say that. And so that's the issue is like, you're right. It doesn't make sense because everything that happens in the Bible happens here on Earth. It doesn't say, oh, well, I flooded Lanulos, to kill all the
yeah,
Nephilim. It's,
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
okay, well,
So I'm with you on that. Like that one doesn't sound kosher to me. And also a lot of Christians like cleanliness over godliness. So why are you all walking around butt ass naked? Like,
right.
I'm not against it. Hey, like that'd be fun, but it doesn't it doesn't coincide with that religion.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Now, two things to kind of think about here. I just wanted to bring this just kind of hit me. To go along with telepathic communication, something that I seen a video of, I don't know, maybe a year ago, months ago. Elon Musk has developed this brain chip that he can put on somebody's brain that cannot use their arms, hands. They can use their brain to pretty much run a computer screen, run a game. I mean, that I know the chip is helping a little bit, but the brain is doing all the power. So I think that's not far off from telepathic communication. Um,
Well, to inject, I think I would disagree. Not in a rude way, but I would disagree. I think this is completely different than telepathic communication. Because you're right, the brain's doing all the work, but you're just taking advantage of the signals that's being sent from the brain to the spinal cord that are no longer getting transferred to your motor skills or whatever, to your arms, your legs. But now you're taking that from a chip and maybe you're Bluetoothing it, maybe you're sending it over Ethernet, but there's still some sort of a connection there where you're more or less controlling a mouse without having an arm. So not, but that's my opinion on it. Maybe it is more close to telepathy, but at face value, it just seems like taking signals and applying it to a chip and sending that data, however the mode of communication would be.
Yeah.
But that's just me. Sorry.
No, hey, we need a skeptic.
Yeah.
But I'm in software, man. I'm gonna look at it as computer chips and as signals and channels and things like that.
Of course, that's why we need you.
But the brain is just a big computer,
Yeah.
it is. And but I'm there with you. I see, of course, I meet a bunch of psychics and remote viewers and things like that, and I'm very skeptical of it. Just because I'll be honest with you, I've had people try to read me psychically, and they've never gotten it right, ever, not one time. And I pull tarot cards. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not like I'm not trying to believe. It's just that I do try, and so far, no dice. So I completely understand where you're coming from. I don't think that we are anywhere near close telepathy. I think that there is a potential for it. But the reason why MK Ultra was ended, let's look at something real. MK Ultra, the United States government experimenting with this type of stuff, is because it was unreliable. They do have some really interesting results that they got. However, they couldn't use it as a weapon as intended. There was no use for it because we can't control those results, which means that ultimately it doesn't mean shit to science. That's what it means. So, I don't know. Is it something that's realistic? Maybe potentially. Is it just a science we're not at yet? It could be. But until we have like dedicated, real, genuine results, and nobody has those, we just have to go, well, it's just not possible for us. Doesn't mean it's not possible for another species, but it's not possible for us.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe as we evolve, like I definitely think telepathy probably exists out there. But my only statement was that I don't think it's the same as this computer chip tapping into your spinal cord. But I think it's out there on Earth. I'm with you, Ashley. Maybe more intelligent beings with stronger brain powers and things like that.
Now, Ashley, I wanted to ask you about this. At the conference, you had said that I believe I have this right. You received a picture from somebody of supposedly one of Indrid's sons. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I did. I actually received the picture from Taunia. That it was of, I believe it was Connor. Let me see here. Let me pull up her message. But yes, she said that somebody in Canada had captured a picture of one of his sons, and she said, yes, that is him. Now, when I look at the picture, it just doesn't, it's just a general human shape. It could literally be anybody. I'm gonna see if I can't send it to you. Yeah, I'm
Oh, yeah, I
gonna
didn't know
send it
this
to
was
you.
a thing. That'd be cool to put up on the screen and do a screen share.
I'm gonna send it to you right now here over
Yeah.
Instagram where we've been chatting. There you go. Yeah, she said someone in Canada captured this picture after having a conversation with them. There's some cars in the photo. To the right, you see a figure wearing like a white jacket or something, and she confirmed, yes, that's who it is. I don't know how she can tell who that is based off the picture. I you can barely tell it's a human shape. But yeah, that's what she sent me.
Marcus, are you on your laptop?
Yeah, I just sent it to you. Um,
Okay. To my email? Yeah, I can do a screen share.
Yeah, that is kind of a like majestic photo, like foggy.
Yeah,
Um, Let me send that to your email, Albert.
like dusk or something, more
Yeah.
night than anything. I mean, it could be anybody.
Okay, so I haven't seen it yet, but you're a little skeptic on it, Ashley.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. I don't know how Tanya would be able to positively identify that photo as anybody that she knows.
Oh, I see, I see.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell me that that's my best friend Joshua, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's Joshua, all right, that sure is him.
I see.
There's just nothing special about
Is
it.
it just the kid? And which is actually fascinating while we're getting the image loaded up. I didn't know Indrid Cold had kids.
Indrid has three of them, actually.
Wow. Could
Yes.
you please share that? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's got two sons, Connor and Connard, and then he's also got a daughter, and I believe the daughter's name is Kimmy, named after his wife, Kimmy.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now I wonder how the person in Canada took this photo and was like, I know why I'm taking a photo of this stranger. Um, I wonder why they said this is definitely Indrid's son. Um, so I'm curious about that.
So I'm
Oh,
pulling up the message here right now. She sent it to me. When she sent it, she said, if you blow up this photo underneath the green light, you'll see what looks like a man. That is Connard Cold. Connard. I said, did you take this photo? No, I didn't take it. A friend of mine took it in Montreal. I said, did they talk to him? She said, no, he ran from them. Then she's like asking me about other stuff.
I see. Um, Marcus, it looks like you disabled screen sharing. I was going to share this photo real quick, but
Yeah, I'm just reading through the messages. We really didn't get anywhere
All right,
from
it
that
should be
point going
good now.
forward. That was
oh, thank you.
I'll tell you when that was too. That was in May 16th of 2022.
Wow.
Was when the photo was taken?
That's when the messages were back and forth. So I don't know if that's when it was taken. I'm assuming it was pretty regular at that point. I mean, we hadn't really talked about anything else, just kind of back and forth about, because me and Tanya are very much friends. We had very regular conversations. As a matter of fact, right before that, we were talking about Jeffrey Dahmer. So,
Yeah, that's funny. Um, yeah, I get where you wouldn't be able to recognize this figure at all. It's also from the back, it looks like.
yeah.
Um, could be anyone in the world. So it's weird to be able to positively identify that person. I I don't know how you could, but
Yeah.
like
I mean,
even if they always wore white with a black belt and black pants, who's to say that was actually them? So that's I don't think I can believe the positive identification. Not saying it's not them, just I don't get how you could identify that person.
well, and I'd imagine there's got to be a story with it. Like I said, I asked, did this person talk with him? I mean, how do we know it's Connor? She said, no, he ran from them. I think that what happened is that I intended on having to sit down with Tanya to talk about it, and then she was always very sick. So it could be difficult to kind of remember some of these things when we did get the chance to get together. And I think that picture was probably one of those instances where I didn't get the friend's name. I don't know who it was. I didn't get to talk to them directly, and it just kind of escaped us. But I'm assuming there's got to be some story there, right? Somebody that reached out to Tanya. And I don't think it's Tanya herself who, I think in this case, she was very much a part of kind of being jabbed at. I think somebody probably messaged her with that photo, said, "Hey, I talked to Connard Cold, and and he ran from me." I mean, I don't know what that means. You know,
Yeah.
how do you encounter? Did you just encounter this guy on the street and went, "Oh, you look like Indrid Cold"? I mean, what happened? I don't know. So I guess I'll never know now. But that's the only photo I've ever received of any of these Lanulogians.
Yeah, I mean that's still
Oh,
very interesting. Just even if just the lore around that photo is just interesting.
yeah.
For you to have that.
So is there no photos of Lanulos that anyone has said, yeah, this was likely him, like maybe at the funeral? I know it was crowded, but if anyone took a photo and they're like, based on the accounts and the description, we really think this is him. Is there anything like that out there?
Tanya always said that she had a photo of Indrid. Just I had never seen it. So when I met Tanya, she was in the middle of moving, and
Mm,
she was very. I met Tanya in at the end of. Well, I didn't actually meet her until 2021. Um,
wow.
and when we met each other, she had been moving that whole process, and not just moving, she was also having a falling out with the only because she's got a bunch of kids too. She was having a falling out with one of her daughters, who was the only one that still talked to her and helped take care of her. But when I met her, she was, I mean, in a wheelchair. She couldn't. I think I own the last book that she ever signed because she did sign it, but it was a big to do, you know. So
Yeah.
she's in the middle of moving, and of course, all of her stuff is like locked in the basement, and everything that she's got, she's never really unpacked anything. And then she moved in some weird, some not so good people who ended up stealing most of her stuff. Now, it wasn't like she was ever like, oh, well, they took my picture of Indrid, you know. It's just that she couldn't physically get to those items, you know. So
Mm,
when she died, of course, it was one of her daughters, not that daughter, a different daughter, reached out to me and let me know she had passed. And I was interested in the documents that she had, the information that she had. Like she had Woody's psyche eval. I wanted that, you know. I at least wanted
wow.
copies of it. You know, I
Yeah.
wanted to see this stuff. She had the original transcript from his book. You know, I wanted to see this stuff and at least again have copies of it. And of course, that picture of Endred, where is it? And none of that stuff just ever came to light. And I've tried to make contact with the family and I've tried to get that information, and I haven't heard anything from them since her passing. So,
Yeah.
there probably is a photo out there somewhere of this man. But again, you're talking about the 60s, the 60s into the 70s. It's not like people had cell phones that just take pictures like that all the time.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but there were photos of like, Woodrow at conventions and things. Is Indrid in the audience? We'll never know without either Woodrow or Tanya being able to identify, yes, there he is. That's Indrid.
Yeah. Now, has Tanya's kids ever confirmed the story? Have they ever publicly discussed it whatsoever?
So that's where things get weird for me. And that's kind of what my lecture about Indrid is not so much about the Woodrow Derenberger stuff, but it's about the Tanya stuff. And right before she had passed, I didn't really know what was going on with her. She was again in and out of the hospital a lot. She had MS. And so she had disappeared for a while off of social media. I couldn't contact her. Her phone number is always changing. That really wasn't unusual, but the fact that she wasn't on Facebook or anything was weird. So I made a post on her Facebook and it was like, hey, has anybody talked to Tanya? Well, one of her daughters reaches out to me and she tells me that she's okay, she's in the hospital, and then just starts like ranting and raving about her mom and about how terrible
Wow.
she is.
On publicly on Facebook?
No, 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 no. She had sent me a private
Oh,
message. Um, but she just starts talking about how terrible she is. Now, I know the family history here. I know that Tanya wasn't always the best mother. I know that she let her kids be subject to a lot of abuse and things like that. It doesn't matter. Obviously, the kids have their own take on her and how they feel about her. That's between them.
yeah.
But I'm a complete stranger to this woman, and she is just like telling me that, man, she's awful, and don't ever give her any money.
Trauma dumping on you, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. She's like, don't ever give her any money. Don't, she's always trying to scam people out of money. And I'm like, okay, me being the investigator, I'm like, here it is, right? I'm gonna
That's
bring up Indrid
fascinating.
and she's gonna tell me that it's all fake. Well, she asked me, how do you know my mom? Finally, after a whole novel, how do you know my mom? And because I'm a 30-year-old woman in Ohio, like why would I know her? And I tell her, hey, I know your mom because of the Indrid stuff. The daughter did not go on a spiel about it. She's just like very neutral. Oh yeah, we've all always known about the Indrid stuff, and just bypasses it and just goes right back into how terrible she is and all these people that are living at her house. And I was just
Wow.
like, if this was fake, if this was part of a big scam, that would have been it right then and there. She would have told me
Yeah.
right then and there, and she didn't.
Did she ever, was it just like she just acknowledged, oh yeah, I know about it too? Or she never was like, oh yeah, I'm not injured. Like did she just brushed it off?
Right. She really just kind of brushed it off. She just kind of, said, "Oh, yeah, that's, we just always, it's just always been a part of our life," and that was that.
That's
She
so
didn't really.
fascinating.
I'm trying to bring up the conversation to see if I can find it. But yeah, I mean, she just talks about how her mom always plays the victim her whole life, and I mean, she was really
Yeah.
um really went on and on about her, but yeah, just kind of brushed over the Indrid stuff. I'm trying to find the message.
Oh
She's
wow.
told me a lot, so I don't. It's
Which,
in here.
which, like you said, if she's, you kind of raise an eyebrow when she's like, she's always trying to scam people, blah blah blah. When you hear that, you're like, oh, your eyebrow almost touches your hairline, and you're like, and tell me more, um, but like you said, that would have been the moment to just be like, and we all knew it was bull crap or whatever.
Yeah.
But she didn't, so that's
She
fascinating.
did tell me some aspects of it. So let me see here. She said, "Oh, said she scammed people." She said, "Yes, her adoptive father is who she says that's true." Because I thought, so that was another part of it, is that me and my researcher, we were kind of talking, and when we pulled up the Woodrow Derenberger obituary, Tanya's not listed. And we were like, and her name wasn't Taunia Derenberger, it was Tanya Bowman. And we were like, did this person just fucking make all this up? Like, she doesn't even know this man, you
Was
know?
she adopted?
She was. So we went on the chase to try to figure out what this meant. And we were kind of trying to figure out how he was related to Tanya. So yes, Woodrow married Tanya's mom, adopted her and her brother. They did not have children together. And so that was not her biological dad. I don't know why she's not on the obituary. I do still find that strange, but she was actually a part of the family. So, when I was telling her daughter about it, I said, we didn't even know, I don't even know if she's related to Woodrow or not. And she, confirmed, yes, that's him. Um, she said the alien stuff, I heard bits and pieces my whole life. Most of the family wrote it off as Woody was a loony. I've been told stories that Tanya is telling people are not true events, and these people I believe. Small details, like when the reporters supposedly swarmed the house and they had to hurry and leave town, slash out of state because they were getting harassed. Not true. They moved because my nana divorced Woody and moved the kids to Ohio and married a salesman. And so she said that, details like that weren't necessarily true. And then that's it. She just goes on to talk about other stuff, personal stuff about Tanya,
I
didn't,
see.
but never said that the Indrid in himself wasn't real. Never admitted that she met him, was pretty neutral about it. I could see Tanya exaggerating some of the details, but to my knowledge, Tanya always told me that they didn't leave in a hurry because of reporters and stuff. It is
Mm.
because her mom actually ended up marrying another UFO guy in Cleveland, Ohio.
That's
Moved the kids there.
wild.
But that she had met because Woody was going around touring all these places and she had met him through Woody. So, but again, those details, that's not a huge deal, right? To me, I just want to know if this Android guy is real.
Yeah,
That,
yeah. That one's not a deal breaker.
but the wife always said that Indrid was real. She went on record and said that I didn't divorce Woodrow because he made up this crazy story. I've met Indrid and his family. I divorced him because of all the attention and all that he would spend months away from home, either on Lanulos or touring around the country or whatever. And he was having an affair. He was cheating on her. Like that ended up, coming to light eventually. He probably had a couple of them while he's touring the country. That's just people do that. I mean, you ever met musicians? It happens.
Sport athletes.
Right. I mean, that's no surprise there.
Yeah.
So, but of course I've tried to get back into contact with the family a bit. On the Taunia Derenberger interview that I did, so all my episodes get posted to YouTube. Also, I don't really push it. I don't really make money there. But if you go to the YouTube video with the Taunia interview, her other daughter commented on it, kind of thanking me for having this interview because now, her mom, she can hear her mom's voice forever. Which is not something I ever considered, when I did it, but I'm glad I could. But, at that point, she's there to talk about Indrid. She didn't say anything. She didn't question Indrid. It wasn't
Yeah.
negative at all. It was all positive. So I don't know what to think.
Oh, that's so
Wow.
perplexing.
So while you were talking about that, I actually dug through. So I was supposed to do a podcast with Taunia in, it looked like February 27th of 22. Um, I was looking through our messages here. I mean, she was very nice. She was excited to do the podcast, gave me her personal phone number. I'd sent her a link to a podcast I'd done. She was very complimentary of that. But unfortunately, she had an MS attack and we couldn't do this podcast. And I just
Yep.
believe her MS got worse at that point. But I had reached out to her as well. I was very intrigued and wanted to talk to her. Ashley, I have a question for you where you had a good personal relationship with her. Now, she talked about this on your podcast as well, and I'd heard her talk about it in interviews. Now, she had another book in works before her death. Do you know, is that just scrapped, or is there still, maybe the family might try to get that out? Or
So I have it. Okay, I have the PDF of what she had written. It's only about a chapter.
okay,
And I've kind of course, questioned what I should do with this, and I wanted to take it to the family first and give them the opportunity because the thing is that Taunia is very trusting with a lot of people, and I'm probably not the only one that has it. If I'm honest with you, and I would hate to see somebody else cash in on this when rightfully this is the family story. It's not mine. It doesn't matter. I was good friends with Taunia, and I'm probably the lead investigator in the whole thing. It's still not my story. It's not anybody else's story. It's the family story. And I want them to do with it what they will. And of course, me trying to make contact with the family. Hey, I've got this book. What do you want done with it? And then not getting a response. The clock is kind of ticking on that one. Again, thankfully nobody's put it out, in this day and age where anybody can publish anything. Anybody could put it up on Amazon, but again, it's only a chapter. It's not a lot. Um, but she was trying to work on a second book to kind of go into more detail about, modern day Indrid and what that looks like for her. And so I don't know. I don't know if it will ever come out. If they give me the green light on it, I am working on an Indrid Cold book as we speak. And if they want me to put it in there, I will. If they don't want me, I won't. It seems like it's going to come down to me having to make that decision on my own. And I don't know what I'll do yet. You can only try to reach out to somebody so many times before you have to make your own decision.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
well, that's
Yeah. Well,
exciting.
more or less, you could almost, if they're not going to respond, you could just coin it as like, this is my book with an excerpt or whatever, however you pronounce it, from Taunia. Like, but so they wouldn't come after you or anything like that.
I don't think they could. Either way, because it's not like it was copywritten or anything. I mean, she
Yeah.
wrote it, but
Yeah.
if they didn't put it out there and copyright it, nobody has so far. Again, it wouldn't make a complete book anyway. So I don't know what they would want to do with it, but again, it's been entirely up to them. But if they don't want to play ball, I don't know what to do with it.
I get it. From you said it goes into more detail, or that was the intent. After you read it, is there any details that you were like, wow, this further made you believe the whole thing?
nothing that you can't hear her talk about on a podcast or anything. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not anything groundbreaking. I think had she had the time to write it more, it would have been different. There could be more to it that I don't have. But she was pretty good about sending me stuff. And so, I would think that she's sent me all of it, but I don't know. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she had more to it, and maybe that's what the family's doing. I have no idea.
Mm.
That's
I see.
interesting that you're coming out with a book on Indrid. You got two customers right here.
Absolutely.
I have to. It's just been so wild for me, especially lately. Things have been very, very weird. And I'm trying to do everything I can. Actually, at the festival, there's a couple there that were speakers as well, and they talk to aliens, allegedly, right? So I approached them and I was like, well, hey, I got an alien that you can try to reach out to. And they were open to the idea. Now, the guy who channels the alien says that he's never really done like a pointed conversation. They've never really tried to get into contact with a specific alien, so he doesn't know how well it's going to work. But I've been very busy trying to do new and interesting things to try to make contact with Indrid Cold, and I'm not quite there yet. But I am hoping to have this book done by the spring of next year. So I guess I better get busy.
That's excellent. I'm very excited about that. Now, with what you just said about communicating to extraterrestrials, have you heard about the CE5 contact with Dr. Stephen Greer and what he does?
I have. Hmm, let me make some enemies real quick. I hate Greer. I do. I hate him. However, I know people have done CE5 and they've had really great results, and I would love to experiment in that way and try to get results from it. But again, how do I know that I'm making direct contact with Indrid? I don't. But if I just sit around and do nothing, nothing happens. So that is an avenue we're looking at. It can be difficult because I'll tell you, I know some really noteworthy, some really credible investigators, and they have warned me against doing CE5. They are like, just be ready for whatever it is that you learn. And I'm like, what is this? Like, you all talk about it like it's life altering, and some people
Yeah.
say it really is. So I had a girl. I did an episode on the podcast. Go listen to it. It's called "Have Your Cake and Kill It Too." I interviewed a girl that I know locally. She dated a serial killer. And this isn't like, oh, maybe he was a
Wow.
little crazy. Like, no, legit, the guy was a serial killer. And if you look at his victims and you look at her, matches his exact MO. Like, she could have very much been killed by this man.
Wow.
She's a cake maker in Cincinnati, Ohio. And when they first met, she made him a cake and I mean, like, she's been on like baking shows and internationally and all kinds of stuff. She's really, really good. She made him a cake that looked like it was kind of like an Ed Gein inspired cake. So it was like skin,
Oh,
like human skin, and it actually bleeds when you cut it open. And so, as
Wow.
like one of their first dates, she makes him this cake, not knowing he's a serial killer at the time, and takes a video of him stabbing open the cake and it bleeding everywhere. you know. Um,
Wow.
so I get her on the show. I interview her. It's a very interesting episode. People really enjoyed it. Go check that out. But she was really into aliens and stuff, and she was doing CE5. And I would see her. We're real life friends. I'd see her on Facebook posting about it, and she'd be like, "Oh my God, guys, this stuff is very real." She had an incident happen, and she kind of vague posted about it and was like, "Listen, I know I said this stuff is real. It's because it is. Don't ever, ever, ever do it. Don't ever do it.
oh
Like, what
gosh.
happened to me? I can't unlearn what happened, or was very cryptic, and then has never talked about aliens ever since then. I mean, just has completely distanced herself from the
Wow.
topic. I don't know what happens, but God damn it, it just makes me want to do it even more.
So
A little bit, right?
I'm glad you bring that up. So I bought the app. It was on the App
Okay,
Store of how you, I've never used it. I've had it for about a year. I just haven't made the time to go out there and try it. But
sure.
I mean, my wife has always said it seems like some type of ritual or something. But I
But
went through the
is
steps.
it her uncle that did it, or you
No,
know
he
someone
didn't do it.
who used
He
it?
didn't do it with the app. He did it.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. That was the meditation. My apology.
Yeah, but essentially it gives you a 5-step process, and essentially you're meditating, but there's a part where you play 3 minutes of very high frequency sounds over like a Bluetooth speaker. You're supposed to do this, at night. Um, ideally, in an open field or something like that.
Minimal light
But
pollution, all that good stuff.
walking through the 5-step process, I mean, essentially it's just meditating, thinking positive, and then you're playing these sounds. I kind of am intrigued to use it now with what you just said.
Well,
So,
don't do it alone. These are the tips that
Yeah.
I've gotten. Don't do it alone. I'm having trouble finding somebody who's willing to do it with me. Um, because when it comes down to it, and this is like a concept I've talked with people about before, is that you know what? It all sounds really cool on paper, but not a lot of us really think about the reality of it. So like Indrid, for example, sounds really neat, right? Oh, there's a cool alien guy just, visiting Earth and talking to humans and taking you to his planet. But the reality is that if Indrid's real and he parked in front of my house and knocked on my door and said, "Let's go to Lanulos," would I do it? Would I be able to do it? I don't know this guy, Just like if anybody knocks on my door and says, "Get in my car," are you gonna do it? You don't know this person, you don't know the risk that you're
yeah.
taking. And so I mean, again, the reality of it is that yes, it sounds fun, but like, do you really believe in this stuff? Because if you really believe in this stuff, then you are opening yourself up for some potentially really terrifying experiences. So finding somebody to do it with can be difficult because just mentally, I mean, people are right. You might not be ready for that experience, but damn it, I'm gonna do it. It's gonna happen.
So can you explain the 5 steps of the CE5 app? Like, so the app itself has these high frequencies and things like that.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Let's see. So yeah, you just log into the app. You can have they have where you can meet up with people like that have I don't know the population that has this app, but you can meet up with
I wouldn't
people.
meet up with those people. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
no, I probably wouldn't either. It has you can network, you can connect with others interested in making a group contact through CE5. Um, let's see. So step one, you play crop circle tones. These are 3 minutes and 38 seconds. These help establish your location. Play the tones on auto repeat for 5 to 10 minutes connected to a Bluetooth speaker. For maximum impact, use a walkie-talkie with the transmit button held down and hold your device near the microphone on the walkie-talkie. This will broadcast the tones through the radio
Does it
frequency.
say onto what channel on a walkie-talkie? What frequency?
It does not. Step two, you begin meditation, coherent thoughts sequencing. Sit quietly while it's a 20-minute audio of them walking you through meditation. Close your eyes, take several breaths, clear your mind, any thoughts that come into play, and gently push them on their way like a stream. Step three, project peaceful intentions. Once you or your group have meditated and reached a calm state, it is important to let nearby ET civilizations that you have peaceful intentions. Step four, share and watch. Pretty much just saying be aware of your surroundings, have your phone out. And then step five, continued awareness. It pretty much says when you leave the field, this contact may not stop. You may have an increase in dreams or anonymous events when you begin participating in these CE5 activities.
Would you want to take that gamble that it could actually change your life in a really negative way, though? I guess that question's for both of you all.
Well, I made that decision when I started doing this. So yes,
That's fair. That's your job,
you
right?
know,
This is your job. I get that. I get why such an easy yes for you.
yeah. Well, it's not easy. I'll tell you, it hasn't been an easy yes. I have a child who I raise completely on my own, who's dependent on me. I can't just fuck off to Lanulos whenever I want to, So
Yeah,
it's not easy, but at the same time, if I ever want to discover anything at all, if I ever want any of this to be any different for any of us, and future generations that will study this stuff, then I have to take the risks.
yeah.
Now I know
Oh, yeah.
Demi Lovato, the celebrity, her and Greer were doing this stuff together. She made very
Wow.
wild claims about dreams she was having and different things in that realm, um, which would allude to what they said in step five.
So Marcus, I guess would you? There's an intrigue. Like I'm intrigued. I kind of want to do it, but if I definitely would or not, I don't have that answer. What about you? Besides being intrigued, if I was like, hey, let's go to this cornfield. There's no light pollution, and it's just us and the stars, and we got a full moon. I know a full moon doesn't matter. I'm just painting a picture. Would you do it?
I mean,
Knowing that this could ruin your sleep, um, like you could have more traumatic events at night, so things like that. Who knows what you'd experience during that time, and then just the lasting effects. If it was a one and done, I would do it. But now that you know you potentially could just ruin your internal peace, would you do that?
yeah, I mean, I want to know what else is out there. I mean, there's so many mysteries. If I got the opportunity to do that, I mean, it seems if we're looking at the timeline of abductions, supposed abductions, and everything, I mean, they've always returned the people. So, and it didn't really. I mean,
Yeah.
other than testing, it didn't seem like any, real physically altering harm. So,
Yeah, maybe your anus hurts a little bit, but otherwise, like you got brought back.
oh gosh.
I mean, Marcus seems like a guy who likes to party, so
Yeah. Hey, Ashley, you want to talk about taking your clothes off? We have so many naked photos of this guy.
Oh gosh.
I love it. That's the way to do it. Just get naked, see what happens.
That's right.
You, he's prepping for Lanulos. Yeah. No, we've always joked. What was it you say, Marcus? Like none of us are ever running for president. We
Yeah,
all know too much.
no, too much. That's right.
That's fair.
All right, so I got two more topics here, Ashley. I don't want to take up
Sure.
too much of your time on the weekend here. I'm not going to go into detail on these topics. For listeners that are into this subject, you've heard this before, but these have some connection into Indrid Cold. So I just want to briefly just ask you about these. Now, the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. This is the first reported abduction. I won't go into too many of the details. In the book, Indrid supposedly told Woodrow Derenberger that these beings, extraterrestrials that abducted Betty and Barney Hill and did those tests on them, these were like grays or humanoids, and they were from a different planet, and they're not harmful, but they don't know boundaries. They don't really know. They don't believe in having possession of something. That they believe anything is theirs. What's kind of your thoughts on that?
Oh gosh. So we actually kind of talk about this a lot on the podcast about how grays don't respect consent, because they don't. I think that various abduction cases, Whitley Strieber would describe that very well. But as far as like different species and stuff goes, absolutely. That is another part of it while we're sitting here talking about CE5, and that's why I mentioned like there's no guarantee I'm going to talk to Indrid if I do it. We have so many varying degrees of people encountering so many different species. It would be very silly to assume that they're all gray aliens. Indrid himself is kind of
Yeah.
problematic, right? He just looks like a human. They're very much just humans. I'd imagine if we took DNA tests of us and them, they'd probably be the same, But like I said, it would be very silly for us to assume that there's not, 50, 100, 100,000, 100 billion different species of aliens out there, and they all have their own reasoning for visiting us. They all have their own, or if they visit us at all, they've all got their own motives behind what they do. So I mean, I buy that very much so. And I think that even when it comes to like grays, there's so much speculation out there about what they are. Some people say that they're, drones. There's some type of like worker bee, some type of drone that is powered by a different species altogether, and then they send these basically robots out in ships to go experiment because it'd be too dangerous to send an actual living being. That's why they're so emotionless, that's why they don't really show much. It's, they're not gonna rub your back while they probe you. They're just gonna get down to business and do it. I mean, I think that that's believable, but then you have people that insist that they are actual beings. Look at Jesus. Have you guys ever seen Love and Saucers? Have either of you seen this
I
documentary?
haven't seen that.
Oh my gosh, check it out. It's on YouTube. It's about a guy who he makes paintings of these encounters that he's had with Greys forever. As a matter of fact, he started a sexual and romantic relationship with one of the Greys, and
Really?
it ended up being that he was basically they were pretty much creating a baby farm because they couldn't procreate with their own species. They'd have to find like human men and female grays essentially, and have them have a sexual relationship and produce babies, and they were all overseen by like the mantis type aliens, which other people weren't seeing, so is that guy's
Wow.
story true? I have no idea, but again, it's just a testament to like how deep some of this lore really goes and how very different some of these species can look.
Some of these paintings are actually wild from the Love and Saucers. As you mentioned that, I just wanted to
I
pull
want
it up
one
and
so
see.
bad. I want the one of him sucking on the alien titty.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah. I'm seeing that one right here.
Classic.
That's so funny.
Yeah, check it out. It's an
Yeah.
interesting watch at minimum.
Yeah. Holy cow. Yeah, this sounds very interesting. Nothing looks appealing about it. I'll say that. Like
I
that is a
know,
creep.
right?
But the alien he has here almost looks like the bird girl from the years ago. She broke the internet. It was that statue. Um, this
Oh,
painting
Momo?
looks, yeah, Momo. Yes, Momo. It looks strange, not strangely, but it looks similar to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, not appealing to me sexually, but
I mean, I think for him it started when he was a teenager, so I think that you have to look at it as in a teenage boy mindset, and I think when you're that age, a hole's a hole. But
who would say no to that? That's so funny. Hey Marcus, who's the big guy? I believe he's from not Colombia. I'm blanking. What's the country just south of Florida? They were closed off for years. Fidel Castro. What's the name of that country? Cuba.
Cuba. Oh yes.
Cuba. Um, what's the actor's name from Cuba? The comedian who was on The Longest Yard and he does stand up.
Joey Diaz.
Joey Diaz. So all of this is absolutely unrelated, but you're right, Ashley. Joey Diaz made a funny joke one day. He was like, "Yeah, you'd fuck your own grandma if you thought nobody'd find out about it."
I mean, I'm just saying. This is
That's
clearly
so
a
funny.
testament to that. But no, they go on to have like a relationship, like a very long relationship. And he started painting these images because the mantis people told him to.
Oh wow.
So that there's a reason behind the paintings themselves. But yeah, no, check it out. Again, is the guy, is it true? I don't know. I wasn't there. Maybe. Why
But it's
not?
wild. Yeah, sucking on alien tits, right? Like
Yeah,
what a painting.
delicious. There's like a point in the story where he talks about like going where he finds out that he's fathering, he had no idea he's fathering children, and he goes into like this giant room, and it's just like like a bunch of babies in like a kind of like a morgue style fashion. You know how they got the bodies on the wall, but instead they're incubators filled with all his babies.
Wow.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That is so wild. Yeah, I'm seeing a painting of a bunch of little ones running around. I'm imagining those are his.
Yeah. So it's no, it's a crazy one. Check that out. Like I said, it's on YouTube. It's free. It's probably on Tubi. You know, who knows? Love and Saucers. Check it out.
That's funny. Hey, thank you.
Now,
Sure.
now, Ashley, the last kind of connection, this is a whole podcast to itself as well. Um, you know, Valent Thor, the extraterrestrial that came to Earth for, 3 year term, supposedly was at the Pentagon, met with Eisenhower. All of this to promote, peace during times of nuclear war, promote advanced technology. Um, there has been ties in that book, Stranger to the Pentagon, that Valent Thor and Indrid were, running around together. Um, you know, they were seen together a lot, I'll just say. Now, what's your thoughts on that?
So the Valiant Thor story is very much to me not genuine. And the reason for it is when you look at the background, what's the guy's name? Frank Stranges, I believe. Frank,
Yeah,
maybe. It's definitely Stranges. That's the last name. He's the one that promoted this story. And when you look at his behavior, historically and going into Valiant Thor, a lot of the stuff, he's very preachy. He's very religious. It all just seems very cult leader-ish, and a lot of his claims that he would never make good on. Valiant Thor was not out there giving lectures with him. Nobody from the Pentagon has ever come forward and said, "Oh, hey, yeah, this is legit." Which, if I get what people are going to say, well, it's a conspiracy. The government covers things up. But you know what? If you guys look at current UAP disclosure, the reason why it's happening to begin with is because people from the government are not sitting around covering it up anymore. We've always had whistleblowers, Bob Lazar, and things like that. Nobody's ever validated the story. And so
Yeah.
there's just a lot of problematic history behind it. And when we go further, allegedly, Valiant Thor and Indrid Cold sell their own books that they have written on Amazon. You can
yeah,
buy them. Um,
Wow.
it's not Indrid, it's not Valiant. It all comes from a guy by the name of Andy Colvin, who is also problematic in and of himself. The tie between Indrid and Valiant Thor came because Andy is a publisher. So he takes dead authors and he republishes their books on Amazon. And when he does this, he'll also write his own pieces into them. And one piece that he wrote into it was that Taunia had seen the picture, the alleged photo of Valiant Thor, and said, "Yes, that's Indrid." Taunia never said that. She told me she never said that. He did buy the rights to her book and her dad's book and then reprinted them again with his own things in those books. So it can be difficult to even find the genuine visitors from Lanulus because you've got Andy Colvin's name over it. Andy Colvin,
Wow.
let me tell you, Andy claims that when he was a boy, this was in the 70s, he saw the Mothman. He didn't just see the Mothman, the Mothman spoke to him and warned him about 9/11. And he further goes on to prove this with a very badly photoshopped picture of a supposed flying humanoid near the Twin Towers as they're on fire. This never happened. None of that ever happened. The only person that ever reported anything like that was Andy Colvin. So the guy is just genuinely dishonest. I did reach out to Andy Colvin at one point in time to try to discuss his side of things. I had to, right? I do Mothman research. He's the only guy that Mothman's ever talked to. And
Yeah.
he immediately started flirting with me, which was gross and creepy and weird. So the guy's just full of shit and unfortunately continues to try to draw these ties together. And if you don't know kind of the whole backstory of all of it and where these characters come from, then it's easy to fall for it, right? You don't know this person, you don't know the hoaxes and lies, and that's okay. Again, I get it, but it is just a bunch of bullshit bred from a guy trying to profit off of these stories.
Oh, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
that's a
So
shame.
It's that. It is. It is a shame. It really is.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I connected to Tanya to begin with, was because he wasn't paying her royalties on her or her dad's book, and she wanted out of it. So, not a good character.
Wow. Well, on Valent Thor, I at face value, I thought it sounded like a believable story-ish, right? Excluding the Christian thing and the preacher part, but like, hey, an intelligent, extraterrestrial being says, "Hey, we see the nuclear war at the brink," right? Like we can see this. We've seen other planets blow themselves up over this. The same thing. Let's go down and try to stop this. I'm not saying that that's ever actually happened, but like I could see that, like someone stepping in and kind of separating these things or trying to do good. Um, but whenever you say, but the person was also that Valent was also a big advocate for Christianity, I'm like bullshit.
Right,
Like,
immediately.
again, that's horseshit. That's malarkey. And
Well, and there's just so much that we know now that's not true. He's not a
yeah,
Venusian. He can't be. No, nothing lives
yeah,
on Venus. We know too much about Venus now,
yeah,
that just nothing inhabits it, right? We know enough about
yeah,
space that we know that there's no other life forms living within our solar system at
yeah,
minimum. And
yeah,
it's like, why would he lie? Why would he come and say he's from Venus? Like that.
yeah.
What's
Why
the
not
point?
say something else like Lanulos that
Right.
no one can prove,
Make it up.
right?
Yeah. you know Anything else. Don't say it's Venus and then now we know 70 years later that it's just not possible. Little stuff like that. And then nuclear war, I mean, that was like a big deal for that time period. It's just a testament to the
Yeah,
type of sci-fi stuff we had going on. We're not going to blow ourselves up with nukes. Yes, we have them, but we're not stupid. I mean,
yeah,
we're killing ourselves in other ways. We're definitely killing our planet in other ways. Why aren't they concerned about that? They never have been, which is weird.
yeah, yeah. Like, and I agree with you completely. I don't believe the actual motive, but if you told me it was real, I would say, okay, whatever. Like if there was proof, cool, but I still agree with you. I'm like, it doesn't make sense why they would intervene, but whatever. But the religion part, the Venus part, I'm like, like BS.
Yeah.
But Marcus, what's your take? And if you absolutely believe it, don't let the skepticism cloud your response. I guess I've never actually heard your full take on Valent Thor.
So I just read the Valent Thor book, Stranger at the Pentagon, the week July 13th when we were on vacation. Um, that book's just hard. The Indrid Cold thing has a little bit more connections going into it. The Valent Thor thing. It sounds a lot like a movie that was made. What was it called? The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Hmm.
There's just a lot, going into that. I don't know. I feel like I don't know enough on it, but it's definitely not going into the believable meter as much as like Bigfoot for me or things like
Yeah,
that.
I get
Yeah.
it.
It's a weird, I mean, it's a fun story, but unfortunately I think that's just all it is. And unless someone credible comes forward and says, yes, this did happen, here's record of it, I'm just gonna chalk it up to Frank Strange's was very much a fiction writer and extremist Christian of some
Cult
sort.
leader, yeah.
It just he's not a very credible source in my opinion.
Even if there was quote unquote proof, I would still negate it because I would want hard evidence with a very reasonable explanation why any alien is now preaching Christianity. Like I'm with you, Ashley. I'm not crapping on religion, but just the logistics of this is nothing but an earthbound religion. Why would any extraterrestrial life form believe in it? and come here and start preaching it or being an advocate for it. So I'm with you. I'm not knocking religion. It just doesn't make any sense why some extraterrestrial being would be like, hey, that's the one, that's the religion. The whole universe is now behind.
Yeah. Well, and we have a very skewed view of religion, being Americans. Especially you guys being in Virginia, me being in Ohio. I get it. But like realistically, what people don't realize is that Christianity only makes up about 28% of belief in religion
Yeah,
around the entire world. We just
yeah,
think it's bigger than what it is because that happens to be the main religion here in America, and
yeah,
we don't really think about other countries and what they
yeah,
believe. So the fact that, 28% on Earth encompasses the whole 100% of life on other planets just seems so weird to me.
yeah. Which that too. So yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I mean, what
Um,
what sets the story apart for me from stuff like Indrid Cold? And again, I went into this as a skeptic. I've tried everything that I possibly can to catch Taunia lying. And I have. That's the exciting part about it, and that's kind of what I talk about in the lecture, is that Tanya does give inconsistent facts. Indrid's age is one of them. It's a big one.
oh, wow.
I don't remember what she said on the interview on the podcast, but I know I asked her how old he was and what his birthday was. And she said I think she said he was like 94 or something like that. But
Wow.
but Tanya's been quoted as saying that he's 101, he's 98. She's given inconsistent ages about Indrid. Um, different things. I've asked her over and over again. I think I had probably even asked her on that interview, does he like fast food? What does he like? Does he go to Taco Bell or McDonald's? Little stuff like that. And I know that might seem silly. But the thing is that those are that's data. That's data that I can record and then revisit later when I ask her again. Is she going to remember that I asked how he likes his cheeseburger? Probably not. So if he likes it with just cheese and ketchup, and he likes it with just cheese and ketchup all the time, or maybe this time, oh, he also likes onion on it. He also likes lettuce. The fact that it changes so often is suspicious, and I have to look at those details. And I'm just using that as a small example. I don't know how Andrew likes his burger, but you know, I have to look at that stuff and as an investigator try to put it into something that makes sense, that is relevant to my job and what I do. As much as I was friends with her, my whole interest in it to begin with was Indrid Cold. And I said it right there on that stage. I think that the Indrid stuff happened. I think that she was present for a lot of it as a young child. I don't think Indrid was visiting her at the end of her life or even into adulthood. I don't think she ever talked to him ever again
Yeah.
after her parents separated.
Oh, well. Did she ever claim he did?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was
Mm,
still visiting. She said he knew about me. He was excited to meet me, and of course that never happens.
yeah.
What's stopping him? If he was excited to meet me, even though she's dead, why can't we meet? If he
Yeah.
if he knows what I'm thinking, and I know he
Yeah.
does, then why isn't he here? Why hasn't he shown up? Why haven't we bumped into each other anywhere? Um, where is he? If he knew who I was and he knows what I do, and he was interested in giving me his story, why hasn't he?
Yeah.
I have to wonder. But I've had very strange things happening since she died, and I can't deny that, which, like I said, has kind of put me back on this investigation. I kind of gave up on it for a while and was just like, you know what? I've done everything I could with Tanya. When he's ready to meet, she'll let me know. Well, then she died. And I'm like, well, I guess that's the end of it.
Yeah.
It was my job at that point to kind of carry on this legacy, and I knew that. Her and I had talked about it. I told her I'd always tell her story however she wanted me to present it. I can only go based off of Tanya's word. But things have been weird. Things have been very strange, and I'm trying to continue to make contact. But it's all very much just reaffirmed that she didn't talk to him, and whether he knows about me or not. Might be some type of coincidence. I don't know. Maybe he likes podcasts. I'm not sure. Maybe he likes redheads. I don't know.
Well, I think that was a good way to wrap it up. I mean, this podcast has just been a blast. I think this is the longest one we've done in a while. I mean,
I think so. I don't think we've ever hit 2 hours.
yeah. So this podcast has been great. In my William Shatner voice, this too remains unexplained.
Very nice.
But Ashley, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We appreciate all the information you provided. Followers, if you're looking to keep up with Ashley, she said she's got this book coming out, and then she's speaking at all kinds of conferences. If you're looking to keep in touch with her, I'm gonna have her Instagram and all that on some slides in the podcast. But you can follow her on Instagram at It's Ashers with a Z. And you can follow her on her Facebook page as well. And don't forget, she's got a great podcast. She covers so many topics. It's called On Wednesdays We Talk Weird. YouTube, Spotify, Apple. I think you pretty much have them on most of the podcast apps. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Anywhere you can get podcasts. It's myself, my co-host Tobias Whalen, who you guys might recognize from the recent Unsolved Mysteries. We're both very dedicated to our jobs as investigators, but we like to give you guys the information in podcast form. So check it out.
Yeah,
that's so awesome. Well, we'll put your information directly in the comments too, just in case it's easier for people to copy and paste it or whatnot. That'll be really easy to find your podcast because I really love the On Wednesdays We Talk Weird. I thought it was fun. I did only get to listen to the one with Taunia, but I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, it's the only thing that pops up when you Google it, so there's really no excuse not to listen. So
yeah. Now I will say I don't want to speak for both of us, but I would love to do another podcast with you where I think it'd be fun to talk about Bigfoot's dick and Edge. Stupid shit, right? Like that. That was before we started recording, but that is such a fascinating topic.
Yeah, it really is.
Which I never thought about. You brought that up. I know you've done a podcast on it, but just the nuances of evolution and things like that. And no one ever thinks about the schlong that dude has, right?
Well, I'm always happy to come back and talk about various dicks of species and sizes and makeups. So far in the show, we've pretty much accepted that a cloaca is not out of the question for most of these things. So
I'd love to do that. That would be, shoot the shit, sit back, talk about.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, this podcast was just so smooth that, I feel like we could go all day.
We didn't even talk about Indrid's dick. I know. It's
disappointing.
Yeah. Are they nudists because they're showing off, or is it just because everyone's rocking the same thing and no one cares?
They all have cloacas. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Well,
damn, that's funny.
Fight Bros podcast listeners, thanks for listening to another show. We'll be back at you with some more soon. Check us out on YouTube. Ashley, thank you again, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening to the Fight Bros podcast. If you like what you heard today, like us on Facebook and like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Thanks for all your support.